morning, ladies and gentlemen of the Malacanang Press Corps. Welcome to our Mindanao Hour and the press briefing of Presidential Spokesperson Ernesto Abella. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Today we're going to be joined by Health Secretary Pauline Jean Rosel Ubial to give us updates about in part of our pre-SONA series. Secretary Ubial will also share snapshots of the administration's one-year accomplishments leading to the SONA. So this morning we'd like the Malacanang Press Corps to please join me in welcoming Secretary Pauline Ubial.
Okay, good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to read the press release on DOH position and update on Marawi City. The Department of Health issues today this positive statement of hope for Marawi City after months of clashes between government troops and the Mauti terrorist group. Composed of 96 barangays, Marawi City has taken siege by the insurgents since May 23 that resulted in a total of 40 deaths as of July 16, with cases ranging from acute gastrointestinal infections to heart-related diseases. 16,411 patients were admitted or treated in health facilities, both government and private, free of charge. There was also a total of 882 patients referred for treatment from the evacuation centers to hospitals. When translated to number of individuals, the overall affected population is about 465,000 persons, close to 500,000 people. Temporary shelters were set up in 87 evacuation centers to accommodate 26,991 internally displaced persons, while those living outside evacuation centers or home-based IDPs added up to 97,788 families, or 438,701 individuals. In these times of conflict, DOH recognizes the significance of addressing mental health issues of affected people. Thus, part of its services given to the internally displaced includes psychosocial first aid, processing, and coping with stress mechanisms. Last Wednesday, July 12, children's party was conducted in several evacuation centers so that to enlighten and relieve the burden from among the children in evacuation centers. We are likewise distributed LED TVs for education, health messages, as well as entertainment during the evenings. And special supplementary feeding for malnourished children, including an egg a day keeps the doctor away intervention for young children, were likewise conducted. A host of medical services is continuously being provided amidst the siege, including routine vaccinations for infants and children, treatment for tuberculosis, diabetes, and hypertensive patients, healthcare services for pregnant and lactating women, deworming and nutrition in emergencies, such as vitamin A and zinc supplementation for under 5 and senior citizens. Other services include the provision of wheelchairs to persons with disabilities, and of course, family planning, counseling, and commodities to women of reproductive age. Taking into account the safety of water being consumed in evacuation centers, the water, sanitation, and hygiene, or WASH, services are also provided. It consists of regular conduct of water testing to ensure its safety prior to consumption, provision of potable water sources, and techniques for household use. Construction and installation of toilets, bathing, and washing facilities, and provision of hygiene kits and water disinfectants are also essential part of our intervention. In terms of logistics and funding, the DOH has allotted a total of 55.2 million cash assistance to both DOH and private hospitals, and 30.4 million worth of logistics, totaling 85.6 million of total assistance to responders for the Marawi incident. The DOH is really hopeful and at the same time incessantly praying for peace in Marawi City. Let us continue to hold on to our vision that one day peace will once again reign in the city, that Marawi will stand up and be resilient against all forces of evil brought about by this senseless terrorism. In the meantime, we are preparing a rehabilitation and reconstruction plan for Marawi City that will include one health center per barangay, one polyclinic for every 100,000 population, one lying-in facility for every 50,000 population, and one hospital bed for every 800 population. So what we are preparing for the rehabilitation of Marawi is really the ideal setup of what we propose to the President as the Cuban model. Right now, Amay Pakpak Medical Center is in full operations. Our hospital, 300-bed hospital in that city, is fully operational. It has suffered minor physical damages and loss of logistics and equipment. And the Department of Health is ready to replace it at a cost of around 5 million pesos. In the meantime, for the SONA, we are happy to report to our people that we have prepared our report of the 365 days of the Department of Health, which focuses on the marching order of the President of take care of the poor. This was the directive of President Rodrigo Roa Duterte upon my assumption to office. The DOH set out to epitomize the President's malasakit and compassion for the people through the Philippine Health Agenda. The Philippine Health Agenda is both a strategic vision for the health sector and a plan that is compassionate and inclusive as exemplified by our slogan, All for Health, Towards Health for All. We have improved transparency in all our offices by adopting initiatives for freedom of information, strengthened our fight against corruption through the newly created Task Force Against Corruption. The President has also shown his support for the health of the people, exemplified by 3 executive orders passed in the last year. He signed first Executive Order number 12 with zero unmet need for family planning last January. Then Executive Order number 26 last May on smoke-free public places, enclosed places, and public conveyances. And the third, but not the least, of course, is the Executive Order on the regulation of firecracker use in this country. In support of improving health services throughout the country, the President has also approved the Philippine Facility Development Plan 2017 to 2022. The medium-term investment plan for government in rehabilitating, upgrading, and constructing new health facilities across the country, which includes 9,604 additional barangay health stations in the next 5 years, 2,289 additional rural health units and urban health centers, and 750 polyclinics. So these facilities represent the primary health care or public health facilities. And additional, in terms of hospital or personal care, 42,856 additional general hospital beds and the creation of 2 mega hospitals, which are our concept of a PGH-like hospital that will be located in Visayas and Mindanao to provide almost all types of specialty services and serve as the ultimate referral center for major island groups outside Metro Manila. To ensure that all Filipinos, especially the poor, marginalized, and geographically isolated disadvantaged areas, have access to essential health services, we have rolled out the Check Up campaign. The campaign ensures that every Filipino is seen by a health professional and is provided information on health and available essential health services to protect him or her from the triple burden of diseases. Since July 2016, around 19 million poor Filipinos were seen by a health professional in this campaign. And last June, we have rolled out the surgical caravan, wherein of the 19 million, 15,300 individuals needed surgical intervention. So that is now being done so that before August, we can address all the surgical needs of the 19 million Filipinos that were checked up in the past year. Despite the risk involved, the DOH deployed a total of 289 doctors, 14,486 nurses, and these nurses are now serving in conflict-affected areas of Marawi as well as the earthquake-devastated area of Ormoc and Kananga. And it is through the heroism of these individuals as exemplified by our dear doctors to the barrios, Dr. Dreyfus Perlas, who died in March this year, heroic death, serving the people of Lanao del Norte, that Filipinos in far-flung areas have access to care. We have worked with PCSO, PhilHealth, DSWD, to facilitate access to financial assistance of the poor who need health care. By the end of the year, all NHTS and poor patients admitted in government hospitals no longer need to line up at DOH, PCSO, PhilHealth, or DSWD offices to receive medical financial assistance. This will now be processed at the hospital that they are admitted. So these are some of the encapsulated snapshots and accomplishments, highlights of the Department of Health under the 365 days of President Rodrigo Roa Duterte. Thank you.
Questions?
Okay, the floor is now open for questions. Yes, Pat Manguni of TV5.
Secretary Ubial, good morning po. Ma'am, you mentioned earlier about a slain doctor from a far-flung area. Meron na naman po sa Cavite recently. Can we get a statement, ma'am? Why do you think this happened and who did this? Thank you.
The slaying of the doctor, he was actually murdered point blank by riding in tandem assailants, is still under investigation. So we have not uncovered the reason for such murder of our doctor. But actually, to our count, there are 4 health workers already subjected to senseless killing this year. The first was Dr. Dreyfus Perlas in Lanao del Norte. The second was a doctor in Cotabato City. Attending to patients, was gunshot or subject to gunshot in broad daylight. And the third was another health worker from DOH ARMM and whose throat was slit in front of his pregnant wife in Arakan Valley, North Cotabato. And the fourth one is the Provincial Health Officer of Cavite.
So, ma'am, how do you think we can protect these doctors from crimes like these?
Yes, we're calling on the police and our security and investigation agencies to fast-track the early resolution of these cases and to bring to justice those who perpetuate these acts, because that's the only way we can actually protect not just the health workers but our people in general, to make sure that those who perpetuate the crime are brought to justice.
Any more questions? Pierre Nada of Rappler. Microphone, please. Thank you.
Hi, ma'am. Ma'am, could we just have the latest update on the number of deaths in evacuation centers as of today?
Yes, as of today, we have recorded 40 deaths in Marawi evacuation centers, and 20% are due to complications of acute gastroenteritis, 15% are due to pneumonia, and 12.5% due to sepsis. Now, I'd like to point out that all of these deaths are home-based evacuees. So they did not come from established evacuation centers, but they were internally displaced persons coming from home-based evacuees. And they died, all of them, except for two, died in health facilities. The two patients died in transit, one being transferred from Amay Pakpak Medical Center to another hospital when the hospital was closed in May 24. So that was one of the first few casualties because this patient was being dialyzed. And the other one is also died in transit because the patient was brought home from the hospital, home against medical advice. So, dalawa po yung who did not die in the hospital.
So, ma'am, just to clarify, none of these evacuees stayed in evacuation centers?
The patients who were brought to the hospital and eventually died in the hospital did not come from the evacuation centers.
This, ma'am, I'd like to ask about the smoking ban EO. What has been the update since the signing of the EO in terms of ensuring compliance among establishments? Is it right that the EO will come into effect on July 23?
It's July 22, and it will be implementable because it is an executive order. So it doesn't need an IRR to implement it. And the major players for its full implementation would be the local government units and the other national government agencies like PNP, MMDA, and of course the Department of Health. And we would like to address full compliance of all facilities in maintaining that indoor spaces and public places. So even if it's outdoor, if it's a public place, and public conveyances should be smoke-free.
Ma'am, are you confident that there will be full compliance by July 22, given that the EO has very specific requirements for designated smoking areas? Like, there's a requirement for automatic doors, and so, ma'am, do you think that are you confident there will be full compliance by that date?
Well, the problem is it's very difficult to comply with the executive order, particularly if an establishment will put up an indoor designated smoking area. So we're advising establishments to actually, hopefully, just establish outdoor designated smoking areas because it's easier to comply with that. We're expecting that there might be some non-compliance, but I hope that our people would see the light of complying with the executive order because there will be sanctions.
Last question from me. So, ma'am, the sanctions, will there be a grace period? Like July 22, some establishments don't comply. What will be the sanctions on that day or in that period of time for those who don't comply?
Well, we will leave that up to jurisprudence if they file cases against the violators, but it will be implemented on July 22. It's effective on July 22. There's no grace period.
Okay, next question. Joseph Morong of GMA 7.
Just to continue on the topic, advice nyo dun sa mga restaurants or maybe mga bar owners who want to establish mga indoor smoking areas. So just to simplify the idea, ano yung meron dapat dun?
Well, it's clear in the executive order that it should be like completely sealed from the rest of the indoor spaces. So there should be no leaks and that there should be an anteroom before one opens to the regular indoor area. So
Or buffer?
buffer zone, yes. There will have to be 2 doors that will be in place and that the ventilation should be separate. And well, in our perspective, that is very difficult to comply with, particularly the completely sealing an area indoor from the rest of the facility because in our many experiences, and it has been shown in studies abroad, that it is really very difficult to seal off a part of the building or an establishment from tobacco smoke or smoking. Because, well, even the very small spaces, the smoke can go through. So we'll just have to see how the establishments will comply, because if they don't comply, then there will be sanctions.
Operational wise, halimbawa may isang taong nag-yoyosi in a public space, can anyone just maybe sisitahin yung tao na yon and maybe report it to where?
The reporting would be to the local government unit because they will be the ones that will establish the task force to implement the executive order. So in some areas where we have local ordinances implementing 100% smoke-free enclosed places, they actually designated task force members. Like in Davao, there's a smoke-free task force. So these are specially hired individuals that really go around and monitor the implementation of the ordinance. In Balanga City, they actually deputized the senior citizens to do the apprehensions. And in some cases, those who were given sanctions and tickets, a portion of that went to the senior citizen who executed the capture. Yes.
So per LGU, ma'am, yung magiging deputization, no?
Yes. Under the executive order, they are mandated to create a task force, and it will be the task force that will implement the executive order.
Just last one. Ma'am, si Presidente parang impatient na siya in procuring the AFP medical supplies and meron yata siyang advice or
Yes.
reminder sa inyo. Paano yung magiging status na?
Yes, we are, right now we've created a special Bids and Awards Committee to handle the AFP and military, not just AFP, also the PNP, as a military or uniformed health facilities, no? PNP, Navy, military, Marines, whatever. So lahat po yon, We have created a special bids and awards committee and they are fast-tracking the procurement.
Kaya within July, kasi sabi ni Presidente, either 60 days or this month.
Actually, we've used the Marawi incident to categorize the procurement under emergency procurement. So it can be procured within 60 days.
All right, no, thank you.
Next question, Rose Novenario of Hataw, to be followed by Ina Andalong and then Henry Uri.
Ay, good morning, ma'am. Ma'am, nabanggit niyo po kanina yung marching order po ni Presidente sa inyo, yung Cuban model po ng healthcare. So, ibig sabihin po nito ay libreng serbisyong pangkalusugan. So, paano po yung pinasok ng nakaraang administrasyon na 20 ospital isa sa pribado, isa sa ilalim po sa PPP, paano po yun? Makakansela po ba yung kontrata or ano po yung gagawin? Kasi pag pinasok sila sa PPP, automatic po may bayad na yung doon pagpapagamot, di po ba? Paano po yung gano'n? Kung Cuban model, tapos under PPP yung public hospitals, paano po yung gano'n?
Even in the past administration, the PPP concept and contracts were not pursued. So, wala po tayong hospital under PPP.
So yung sa orthopedic po, hindi na po yun.
Wala na
hindi
po.
Lahat po yun hindi natuloy.
Oho.
So lahat po public talaga.
Lahat ng development natin and upgrading ng hospitals is funded through the GAA, national government funding.
Okay, thank you po.
Ina of CNN Philippines.
Good morning, ma'am. Ma'am, ano naman, going back to the EO on the smoking ban, ano naman po yung expectations for LGUs? Although kasi you were saying that it might be a bit more difficult for the private restaurant owners or establishments to comply with the designated smoking areas. For LGUs, do you expect them that on July 22nd, open na yung pocket areas for smoking? And what will happen if they do not have these by the 22nd?
The local government units are actually the ones to implement the executive order. So they will be the ones to ensure that all public places have a designated smoking area. So, and also for compliance of public conveyances, that absolutely no smoking in all public conveyances. So sila yung magpapatupad nito. And well, we know that there might be some LGUs that will not comply with this, but we are working doubly hard for the DILG and the LGUs to eventually put this in full force.
What do you mean, ma'am, that you expect that some LGUs will not comply? I mean, there are LGUs, you do expect more from them in terms of compliance.
Because there's a lot of work to be done by the local government unit. So it depends on how they move forward in terms of the task force, in terms of the information education materials, and in terms of having the private facilities also comply with designated smoking areas.
And ma'am, for the small businesses that might want to have indoor designated areas but cannot afford it, I'm just wondering if there is any form of assistance from government if they seek, I don't know, financial help, dahil kulang sila sa pondo. Baka kasing may ganun nag-iisip.
We don't have any assistance because we would like, as government, to really ensure that there is no indoor smoking areas. That's why the advocacy is for the establishment to have outdoor designated smoking areas. Kaya mahirap yung indoor. Wag na sila mag-indoor, mag-outdoor na lang sila.
And lastly, ma'am, although you mentioned that the IRR won't be needed, are you still going to issue one, and by when can we expect these more specific guidelines?
The IRR is now being crafted. Unfortunately, there's a lot of vetting that has to be done with all the key stakeholders, the other government agencies. So it's taking quite some time to issue the IRR.
Henry Uri?
Secretary, good morning. Malaki ho ang nagagastos ng pamahalaan sa mga pagpapagamot ng mga may karamdaman related sa smoking. Ano ho? I think tuberculosis and yung iba pang mga sakit.
Yes, that's true.
Hindi ho ba na pag-uusapan sa inyo sa pagitan ninyo at ng Pangulong Duterte yung total ban ng sigarilyo, not just smoking, but manufacturing, selling, importing, yung mga ganong bagay ho?
Wala. Wala pa po tayong pinag-uusapan na total ban of tobacco in this country because we are known as a tobacco producing country. So marami pong maapektuhan. The total cost for estimated and calculated cost for all the tobacco-related illnesses in this country is 188 billion a year. It's more than the budget of the Department of Health and PhilHealth combined. So malaki pong parang kawalan sa Pilipinas nung patuloy na paninigarilyo ng ating mga kababayan. And we're not just talking about the individual effects to the smoker, but also second-hand and third-hand smoke.
Pero kung kayo ang tatanungin, paayag ba kayo na magkaroon na tayo ng total ban sa sigarilyo?
Well, the World Health Organization and most of the health organizations are pushing for a tobacco-free world.
Okay.
Because there's no useful use of tobacco.
Anong parusa ho ulit dun sa mga lalabag sa smoking ban, please?
Yes, teka lang, babasahin ko. It's a fine for individuals. Ito. Okay. Teka lang po. For individuals, ito. It's a fine of 500 pesos to 10,000 pesos, depending on the number of offenses. And for establishments who violate, it's also a fine. Ayun. And, fine of 5,000 pesos or imprisonment of not more than 30 days. So meron pong imprisonment. Yung for establishments.
Okay. Last question, ma'am. Overall health status of the nation under Duterte administration, kumusta ho? Malusog ba ang buong sambayanan or nagamot na ba natin yung malnutrition? Marami na bang mga nagkakasakit na nakaka-afford ngayon ng mga basic consultations lalo sa mga government hospitals?
In the past 365 days, we were able to ensure that the poorest Filipinos have no balance billing in government hospitals. No? But still, the out-of-pocket expenses in general for the population is still very high at about 56%. So, yun pa rin yung hinahanapan natin ng paraan so that we can bring down out-of-pocket. So, even the not-so-poor and the not poor, gusto natin matulungan in terms of their health expenses. And in terms of the disease occurrence, it is very difficult to bring down diseases in 1 year alone with interventions. It takes about 5 to even 10 years of consistent intervention to bring down diseases. Like, for example, tuberculosis. We're one of the highest tuberculosis prevalence in this part of the country. 322 cases per 100,000 population. In other countries, it's about 22 or 27. Sa atin, 322. And we can only bring that down if we consistently and for a long period of time really try to get all the known cases of tuberculosis and put them under treatment. Unfortunately, because of the nature of the disease, no, and the stigma that is attached to it, many Filipinos don't seek treatment. Even sabihin natin, inuubo na sila ng 2 weeks or more, even if the drugs are for free, they don't go to the health center. So that's really a big challenge. And what we try to do in this administration is to really bring out to the people the diagnostic facilities. Kasi sa ngayon, mga health centers and hospitals lang ang kaya mag-diagnose ng TB. We want to bring in mobile teams to go to the community and diagnose TB in the communities, even in far-flung areas and hinterlands. So consistent dapat for the next 5 years, and we can have siguro the cases of TB. But for other diseases, like for example, HIV/AIDS, no, it's still going up, and the way to also address HIV/AIDS is really to get to all positive cases and treat them. Unfortunately, yun rin ang problema natin because of the stigma. Many of our people who are doing risky behaviors don't get themselves treated. Even up to the time they are hospitalized, and we see the opportunistic infections, they do not want to undergo HIV/AIDS testing. No? In denial pa sila. So there's really a lot of challenges. But we hope with consistent and effective allocation of resources, we can bring these diseases down. Particularly sa ating vaccination campaigns, I think we have the full support. We have all the vaccines we need. Hopefully, the 15 immunizable diseases that we have will be brought down in the next year or so. Yung measles, rubella, mumps, these are already eradicated in other countries because of high vaccination rates. We can bring it down. And we have eradicated polio. And hopefully, by the target is 2018, we can really say that the Philippines is able to eradicate polio with combining oral, bivalent polio vaccine and injectable polio vaccines. So marami po tayong challenges, but hopefully with the full support of the President and this administration, we can have all the resources so that we can address the major causes of illnesses in this country.
Okay, just last question from Rose Cause.
Hi, ma'am. Good morning po. Regarding po sa smoke-free public places, kasama po ba sa kino-consider natin, kasi you mentioned na you will work with DILG full force sa pagpapatupad po nito. Yes. Kasama niyo ba sa kino-consider po yun pong name and shame campaign ng mga LGUs na hindi striktong magpapatupad? Kasi maaring epektibo sa Davao City, pero pag nationwide ang pag-uusap, mas mahirap po ito. Alam naman po natin na maraming kautusan na nag-exist, pero pagdating sa pagpapatupad, doon po tayo nagkakaroon ng problema.
Yes, that's a good idea, no? We did that for firecracker injuries. And we brought down the firecracker injuries by 30% this year. So hopefully, and we have not brought it down in the last 10 years. We named the LGUs who were among the top or highest injuries in the country, and it brought down the firecracker injuries. And we are ready to explore that idea of really naming and shaming some of the LGUs that are not complying, and also rewarding those that have fully implemented the 100% smoke-free environments. By the way, we have recorded 48 countries in the world that has smoke-free policies. 48 pa lang po. And hopefully, the Philippines will be one of the leaders in this endeavor. We're part of the 48 now. And Australia is actually leading the way. But we hope the Philippines will be among the leaders. We have 189 countries member of the World Health Organization.
Okay. Thank you very much, Secretary Ubial.
All right. For the daily Marawi update, Brigadier General Resti Padilla will not be able to join us today or for the rest of the week. However, we do have just certain summaries that we can state. Civilians killed by terrorists, summary is 45 so far. Civilians rescued, 1,723. Terrorists killed, 405. Recovered firearms, 511. Government casualties killed in action, 97. Buildings cleared, 17. The Office of Civil Defense will give their update on Bangon Marawi every Friday. On the DND's martial law position, the Department of National Defense has submitted its recommendation on martial law to the President as of last Thursday, July 13. The President will go through and will make a decision on the matter. As we all know, the President listens, and he considers the position not only of the military and of the police, but also the interests of vital stakeholders. We're open to a few questions.
All right. Okay. Okay, Joseph Morrow.
Sir, just the last point po. Sa martial law, sir.
Yes.
When do we expect the President to announce his decision? Kasi mag-expire na on 22nd, no? Yung
It should be on or before that.
on or before, sir. What will be the, only if you know, sir, what will be the primary consideration of the President when deciding whether to extend or lift?
Again, of course, it will be the threat to public safety, especially in concerned areas. Yes.
Thanks. That's it for me now.
Question? TV5, Pat Mune.
Sir, I believe Secretary Lorenzana has recommendations on martial law. Can we get a few details on this, sir?
Like I said, he already presented, and it has to be studied by the President. It's being studied by the President. Thank you.
Any details, sir? Can we get?
We'd rather not preempt the President's decision.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Next question, Pierre Nada.
Sir, could we just have the palace reaction to the new Pulse Asia survey on the 82% approval rating of the President?
On the what?
82%. Highest approval rating among top government officials.
It's pleasant news. Thank you.
Could you elaborate, sir? Because, sir, he's the highest out of all the top government officials.
Well, of course, at the end of the day, he will not claim it for himself. He will give due credit to his cabinet, and to the participation of all agencies. As he very well knows, it's not just him, although he stands is out front. But he will credit it also to the participation of the rest of the cabinet and the different agencies. Thank you.
Dexter Ganibe, DZMM.
Sir, going back doon sa recommendation ng SND, ng
Opo.
AFP, doon sa martial law. Sir, without preempting kung anong magiging desisyon ng Pangulo, ano po yung in-gist, yung recommendation? Would it be an extension or lifting of the...
Let's just wait for the President to make the final announcement. Thank you.
Yes, sir. We will be waiting for the President for his decision. But ano po yung nire-recommenda ng AFP sa kanya?
Hindi ko pa alam kung ano yung nirecommend exactly. I cannot comment on that. But again, like I said, it will be hinging on public safety. Safety especially and whether or not the threat can be duly addressed, has already been sufficiently addressed.
So binabanggit, sir, na mayroon pang threat doon sa kanilang recommendation?
Hindi ko po nabasa. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Any more questions?
That's about it.
None? All right. Thank you very
Yes,
much.
Mr. Ross.
Okay, Ms. Cozia.
Sir, natanong po to last week, pero ideya na po kayo kung matutuloy yung meeting ni President Duterte with the senators tomorrow?
Tomorrow?
Yes.
I'm not sure.
At tonight?
I believe so. I mean, I believe that's part of the agenda. That's part of his appointments.
And the agenda will be about?
We'll just have to wait on that. It's not published. The agenda was not published.
How about po yung pong extension ng martial law and the BBL?
The BBL will be submitted to the President this afternoon. And then that's exactly where this No, it will be submitted this afternoon.
So most likely po, ang meeting ng Pangulo with the senators will be about BBL?
Yes, I suppose so. It's safe to conclude that it will include that.
Okay, thank you po.
Okay, Pia Gutierrez, ABS-CBN.
Sir, tanungin lang po yung reaction ng Palace on criticisms regarding President Duterte's latest rape joke.
You know, I think we need to understand what he really said. Basically, it's not a joke. It's a very serious statement. That's actually saying, kumbaga parang sinabi, believe naman ako kasi gagawin mo, alam mo, ikamamatay mo yan. You know. It's a sarcastic statement. It was not a joke.
So the President was taken out of context by the media.
Well, let's put it this way. We do need to clarify certain statements. And like I said, he was quite serious about that. Na gagawin mo yan, alam mo yung magiging kararatnan yan. So, you know.
Okay, Cassie Valente.
Why does he like, why does he like rape jokes?
It was not a joke, Mr. Moron. I said it's a very forceful statement.
Okay. Cassie Valente Remate.
Chris Jose. Sir, malapit na po yung SONA.
Yes,
Ano pong paghahanda ang ginagawa ng Pangulo from this day hanggang sa Sunday?
Alam ko, as far as I know, there will at least be one run-through for him. And basically, it's all making sure that his message is what we all know already what he's done. So it will be basically a summary of what has happened in the past, a clarification of his position, and looking forward.
Yung pong sa isusuot niya, sino pong gagawa?
Ay, hindi ko po alam kung...
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Sorry, Chris Jose of Remate. All right. Pia Renada of Rappler. And then Pat Manguni of TV5.
Sir, is the President doing anything different for SONA this time around? Any new thing we're doing for SONA?
As far as I know, he's just simply going to be speaking from his heart.
Sir, candid? What do you mean? Candid speech?
Come again?
It's not a prepared speech? Is that what you're saying?
There is a prepared speech, but basically it will try to capture what he really intends to say. It intends to capture what he means.
Sir, and what is the palace reaction to, because the President's rape remarks have affected some of his policies already. For example, a Bangsamoro member resigned because of a previous rape remark. Sir, does the palace have anything to say about how his rape remarks affect policy, affect his key promises? Does the President plan to change the way he speaks since it already affects some of his major promises?
Like we said, people have made comments regarding that matter, but as we have already seen, the President is more than just jokes. The majority of the people, especially the masses, really get him. In fact, in the words of Congressman Lucy Torres, we get him. We really get him. And so I think we should go by that, and we should take take guidance from that. That the people actually really do get him. Well, there are those, of course, who tend to zero in on certain details, but as far as the public is concerned, and they're the ones who really need, who really approve of him, they find the president as somebody who understands them, who has their common interests, the common good at heart. And for that, I think that's exactly why, as your question, how come there's such a high approval rating? Simply because of that, he gets them and they get him.
Okay, Pat?
Yes.
Hi, sir, could you give us salient features of the BBL, the new BBL this time, sir, compared to the last one?
No, I don't have the copy of the BBL. So as soon as we get the BBL report, we will also announce what features are pretty unique to that.
But sir, will the Marawi crisis and the martial law in Mindanao affect the passage of this new BBL?
No, I think the passing of the BBL will affect the crisis. It's the other way around. I mean, considering the fact that for the MI and the MN are being recognized as being legitimate representatives of the Bangsamoro, and so I'm sure that the fact that their pleas and their desires, their aspirations are being given consideration should affect the actual peace situation in Mindanao.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. No more questions? All right. I think that concludes our press briefing and Mindanao Hour for today. Thank you very much, Health Secretary Pauline Obial and Presidential Spokesperson Ernesto Abella. Back to the main studio of PTV4.
Meeting with the Hungarian ambassador. I'll have